your host, Luis Acevedo, and man, is it a good day to be an American. Let me tell you, it is a really, really good day, and this is something that I am very proud of as far as Trump goes. I guess I'm kind of proud that I voted for him in 2016 because he got the Supreme Court justices uh, appointed and nominated and in there that did what they did today and yesterday. Huge wins in the Supreme Court. And it is incredible. So, yesterday, the Supreme Court gave it, in New York, the right to conceal carry, saying it was a constitutional right. And what they had implemented was unconstitutional. So, New Yorkers and many other places have. What's up, bro? Yep, Second Amendment. That's right. So New Yorkers now have the right to go around concealed carrying. That's a beautiful thing. The Constitution is winning. It is really, really exciting to be alive at this time because things are changing in this country. And what a great thing. I'm not the biggest Donald Trump fan. I did not vote for him in 2020. I was totally against him on Operation Warp Speed. I was against him on many other things as well. But I did vote for him in 2016. And what had just taken place today is a really, really good thing. And now we have Texas, Missouri, Nebraska. I may be missing a couple others that have made it illegal to have, they overturned Roe v. Wade, leaving it up to the states. And now it's illegal to do those kind of things to babies. And this is a huge, huge win for America. And I know there's a lot of people in the truther community who may be thinking that there's going to be something else coming, right? There has to be something else coming because Roe v. Wade was just overturned. And I get it. I get it. I get the cynical vibes. I really do. I can be cynical at times as well. I'm very skeptical of the government. I'm very skeptical of what they do. And I know that there are a lot of nefarious acts done behind closed doors. There's a lot of legitimate conspiracies. And I think that what had just happened today is something that should be cherished and relished amongst the American people because we have to celebrate these small wins. We have to celebrate these small wins. We do. Because if we don't celebrate these small wins, how are we going to have any boost of morale whatsoever? You just can't. And so it's important for everybody. Small win for who? Well, it's actually a big win. So I can't even say it's a small win, but we should be happy about these wins. And it is a huge thing. And I think that there is going to be some blowback, obviously, right? Because there are talks of a night of rage, quote unquote, where this group called Jane's Revenge, so I hear, I'm not saying that this is legitimate or whatever, but there's a lot of articles going out about this stating that they will have they'll take to the streets and protest against, in probably not so nice of a way as we saw last summer. We won. We did win. We did win. We will protect our church 2A. That's right. And they are, threatening to do things in Washington, D.C. And the Department of Homeland Security just said, that's right, no more of that. Peaceful protests, that's right, you get it, quote unquote. We're back on TikTok, by the way, guys. The ban is over for TikTok. We're back. They can't keep us down. And in the meantime, we grew substantially. And don't forget to follow these channels up top because we need to have multiple backup channels to go live. Multiple. On MOT Media, we have like 940 something. So we're almost there. And then MOT Sports, we got like 200 and something. But then we got MOT Today, which almost has 40,000. And we have this one. So, we're growing. We're doing our thing. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. that we're growing MOT, and that the Supreme Court is doing its job. Thank God for the Supreme Court. Thank God there's still rule, law, and order in this country, truly. And I am truly grateful for President Trump putting those people into the Supreme Court. I will let people in momentarily. I just want to cover a few things before we let some people in. So, the Department of Homeland Security is warning people that they need to, pro-life organizations specifically, that they need to brace for impact, because there's going to be potential things happening to them. And so it is really, really imperative that we, in my opinion, celebrate the win, but also be, not blinded by what's to come, because I do think that there can be some events that take place that will there's definitely going to be an opposite reaction to what's taken place. I'm trying to be a little more tactful in my approach, because if I try to get too controversial here, I usually get the boot. So trying to keep it a little lighthearted. Trump is a traitor, and so are you. You deserve to be. Wow, that's insane talk. That's really insane talk. Yeah, it's going to be you conservatives out there causing trouble and blaming it. I guarantee you, these are paid trolls that are saying this. Like, it's literally insane what they're saying. Or they're just so brainwashed, And it makes sense why Jesus says, don't cast your pearl in front of swine. It really does. Nope. They're mad. They're gonna loot Apple stores again, probably. And here's the other thing. Hang on, because there was a comment here that sparked it. I don't remember exactly what I was going to say, but anyway, so the Department of Homeland Security is saying, be prepared. There are potentially going to be threats taking place in major cities and pro-life organizations, and that's just quite telling. That really is. You forgot because you're shook up and you can't remember your lies. Okay, so I'm glad you agree with the Capitol hearings. I mean, that's all theater. That's all theater, what you're referring to. Jesus did say that. Humanity did. I don't know what you're talking about. All right. So those were the things that I really wanted to make clear today about the Department of Homeland Security, and that Trump did a great job at selecting Supreme Court justices. And now let's let on this guest, see what he has to talk about, and we'll go from there. Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well.
1 second, let me activate my camera. I'm sorry.
Nope. And you're saying I was scared? You're saying I was scared?
Well, yeah, I requested to speak with you like 3 minutes ago.
And did you not hear me say? Yeah, and did you not hear me say that I wanted to cover some things first? If you haven't watched it,
I must have joined after that.
Yeah. So yeah, and plus we have people come on here all the time talking about these topics, so nobody's scared, and we're here to have a friendly conversation.
Let's have a friendly conversation.
So what do you want to talk about, my man?
I would love to talk about a variety of topics.
Okay.
Starting with the Roe v. Wade ruling.
Okay.
What is your opinion on what Roe v. Wade actually did for this country? For the overturning? I'm sorry.
So the overturning of it technically just basically stated, as rightfully so, that it's not a constitutional right to do the A word. I have to try to be careful what I say here, because you're not even listening to me. So if you're not going to listen to me, well then stop shaking your head and just listen. Just listen. So firstly, we have to be. So firstly, we just want to set some ground rules here. We have to be careful on what we say, because my live streams do have a tendency of getting kicked off of TikTok. So the A word, we'll call it the A word. So
can we get your definition of the A word first, just so that we're not speaking past each other?
The A word is unaliving a baby.
unaliving a baby.
Once again, if you're gonna be on this stream, you got to be able to talk tactfully, my man.
I'm just asking for your definition.
Yep, and I'm telling you that is the definition. What's the opposite of alive? You don't have to say it. Yes. So unaliving a baby.
So babies that are 1 year old.
No.
That counts as abortion. Can you be a little bit more specific with your definition?
Yeah, the A word is unaliving babies in the womb.
Unaliving babies that are not yet birthed.
Correct.
Can we agree on that?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So in the Constitution, nowhere does it say that they have the right to do so. People want to say that, okay, well, you have medical privacy, but that's a totally different argument right there. So the overturning of Roe v. Wade is essentially leaving it up to the states and taking the federal government out of it, which is a huge, everybody should be thrilled about that, because that just means the federal government is out of the mess. And now the states can decide, which means that the cultures in each state can decide what they want and what they don't want. So that to me is much better than having the government, the federal government, overrule on such a sensitive topic. So anybody should be able to agree on that, because that is a very, very reasonable position to say, guess what? The federal government should be out of it. State governments, you decide based on your culture. That is the American way. So that is the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
Great. Now, let me ask you a question. Did Roe v. Wade, whenever it first started, whenever it was first ruled on in the favor of Roe, did that not grant the rights of privacy and bodily autonomy? Were those rights not extended to American people through that ruling?
You already had it beforehand. You didn't need that.
In what amendments or in what constitution?
Well, in the Constitution, I mean, you do have the right to privacy already. I think it's like the Fourth Amendment.
Fourth Amendment is protection against illegal search and seizure. That is not a right.
Yes, which then, yes, it is. The court has ruled on this. That is the right to privacy. It is. It is. Yes, exactly. So they've interpreted as the right to privacy, because you can extrapolate from there. So you don't need Roe v. Wade to have medical privacy.
So that's a new right that they have granted based off of their interpretation. Okay, bodily autonomy.
I never said it was a new right. No, I never said it was a new right.
Bill of Rights is bodily autonomy.
I'm sorry?
Where in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights is the right to bodily autonomy?
You tell me.
It doesn't exist.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so you agree that you as a citizen of the United States do not have the right to bodily autonomy. You are not in control of what you can do with your body. Do you agree or not agree based off the Constitution?
Well, what do you mean by bodily autonomy?
Bodily autonomy, you can do what you want with your own body.
So then wouldn't freedom of speech apply to that? How would it not? Because my body, I need my body in order to speak. I do. Technically speaking, no, if we want to get really technical here, I need my throat, I need my brain, I need my ideas, I need my consciousness in order to speak. And then also, hang on, we're getting technical here. I also need my body to protest, which you do have the freedom to protest. You have the right to assemble. You can't assemble if you have no body. So there are bodily autonomy in the Constitution.
Unenumerated rights that are in the Constitution.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I am using logic and extrapolating based on the rights that are in the Constitution.
Right. There are logical things that
Yep.
you can extrapolate from the Constitution.
Yep.
Such as the right to bodily autonomy, the right to privacy, the right to self-defense. Those are all things that are not explicitly stated within the Constitution that you can unenumerate that you have those rights.
That's not true. The Second Amendment says you have the right to self-defense. The Second Amendment says you have the right to self-defense. So everything you're saying, it says that you have the right to own what it says that you have the right to form you have a well-regulated militia, and the reason you have a well-regulated militia is against the tyrannical is for a tyrannical government. And so therefore, once again, you extrapolate that you have the right to self-defense.
Can you pull up the Second Amendment so that you can read it, or I can recite it by verse if you prefer.
Go ahead.
A well-regulated militia, subject, comma, being necessary to the protection of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed.
Boom. And why do they have that?
So
why do you have that right though? Why do you have that right?
Doesn't matter.
It does matter. It does matter. It does matter.
You tell me.
You have that right. So anybody with half a brain cell can come to the conclusion, well, why would you need how would you keep a free state first off? Well, in order to keep a free state, you would need the right. Yes, I know. In order to keep a free state, you would need what? You would need the right to protect yourself and protect the state. So if you have the right to defend the state, cool. But then why does a human need the right to bear arms? Well, the human needs the right to bear arms for what purpose? For multiple reasons. It can be to...
No, for the protection of the free state, and explicitly says so.
No, it doesn't.
Based off of originalist text. That's what it says.
No, it doesn't. It says that humans have the right... Humans have the right to bear arms, as you said. Humans have the right. Humans have the right. Right here, it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms. And dude, you want to talk about the... Okay, I will. It's right here. It says a well-regulated militia, comma. So therefore, it's something else. Being necessary to the secure... Yes, for this next comma, which is being necessary to the security of a free state. So you need a well-regulated militia for the security of a free state. And then comma, additionally, the right of people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed.
The right of the people. And people is a capital P. People as in the population, not an individual.
But how do you, dude, you make no sense, because how do you get people? But individuals make up a people, do they not?
Oh, and corporations are people too.
No, they're not. I never made that argument. You're making logical fallacy jumps here. A people, you need, I'm making logical statements which are easily deducible. So individuals in a group can be called a people. So therefore you need multiple individuals to make a people. You can't have people without individuals. What you're saying is nonsensical.
So why does the Constitution not specifically say individuals or citizens like it does?
Because the people is a collective group of individuals.
It doesn't do
what does people mean? What does people mean? What does people mean?
The people.
What does the people mean?
It's a group which is referencing the militia.
No, it is not.
So
why are we getting caught up on this? Okay, so you wanted to come on here for Roe v. Wade. We're obviously not going to come to terms on the Second Amendment, right? Because you lack simple logic skills here, and you lack the ability to properly read the text. So let's focus on Roe v. Wade, because I am.
I'm going based off of originalist interpretations of the Constitution. So the reason why they overturned Roe v. Wade is because they said, well, there's nothing that says originally in the Constitution that there's a right to abortion. Well, there's also nothing that gives you a right to privacy or a right to self-protection.
The Fourth Amendment, the Second Amendment, the First Amendment. We already went through this logically.
The Fourth Amendment. Read the Fourth Amendment. Show me the Fourth Amendment.
We've already went through these things. Yes, which means what, man? Which means what? You have the right to privacy.
Which means that a cop can't run up on you.
Which means you have what? Which means you have what? If a cop can't run on you, what does that logically mean? It means that you have the right to privacy.
Only in certain situations. They're different things.
But see, now you're getting where I'm coming from, that logically these things are easily deducible.
Is your medical privacy?
Is your what?
Is that allowed for the state to look at?
Say that again?
Your medical privacy.
No, the state can't. You have doctor-patient confidentiality, just like you have lawyer-patient.
And how would they even be able to know if somebody's getting an abortion or not?
Well, they.
Bye.
Okay, peace. I don't know why he just dropped off the stream, because he was obviously losing the debate. Obviously. The Fourth Amendment sends the people again into secure in their people. Haha, that guy. Right, that guy. I mean, come on. Seriously. So, okay, how would people know if somebody's getting the A word or not? Well, first off, when you're doing an illegal act, the the right of patient and doctor confidentiality goes out the window once there's an illegal act being done. So that makes no sense. It makes no sense what he's saying. So, yeah, it's a beautiful thing what's taking place right now. America is turning around, and we are seeing a new wave. A new wave. He's mad because he know I won. Yeah, dude. I mean, what you said makes no sense. It doesn't, because I just stated if you commit an illegal act, the doctor-patient confidentiality goes out the window. It goes out the window by law. So it just doesn't make any sense what you're saying. America is going backwards. Welcome to the Handmaid's Tale. Roe was medical privacy. Roe, the woman who was in the face of Roe v. Wade, she ended up going against it. She ended up like becoming a nun or something and protesting against Roe v. Wade because she was like, whoa, this is wrong. Doctor-patient privacy is over. That's all these people are talking about on here is doctor-patient privacy is over. It's not over. It's not. If you commit illegal acts, then that confidentiality is null and void. Fact. That's the law. So we're going to let somebody else hop on here, see what they have to say. Let's make sure to try and be tactful in our speech. What's going on?
Not much. Just wanted to point out this doctor-patient confidentiality. It also, you're correct. Illegal acts do not have anything to do with it. If somebody's performing an illegal act, then it's the doctor's obligation to report it to the proper authorities, which is why we have child abuse laws that are protected by medical staff. We have mental health laws that are protected by medical staff. It's put in place to ensure that we're not doing harm to others. And it's a legal issue. Now, personally, do I agree with it being overturned? No, because I should not have the right to choose what you do with your body, just like you shouldn't have the right to choose what I do with my body. However, it's going back to state laws, and a lot of these state laws have already been implemented before the Roe v. Wade. One of the things I wanted to point out and make sure that everybody was aware of, yes, Roe, she ended up converting and being a nun. She also admitted to lying about a person of color using the R word.
Yep.
To try to get her point across, because understand that during that time, that was a big issue. And it was along with the civil rights and everything like that. So that's why it got implemented, was because she made it about race. And unfortunately, that was something that happened. The thing that really cracks me up is you have all of these leftists and Democrats that are thoroughly irritated by it. But who was the last justice that was appointed? Why is that not being a valid point?
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand, that people, like, we're getting jumped to all these different conclusions and stuff. And it's just being reverted back to what it was. Now, do I think that people should be allowed to cross state lines if they want to have an abortion performed? Then yes, I think they should. If medical services cannot be provided in one state for legal reasons, then they should be allowed to travel freely to have medical services that they want performed. I mean, people in the United States travel across the border to Mexico because it's cheaper. Canadians travel to the United States instead of waiting in line for that standardized healthcare that everyone claims is supposed to be the end all be all to help keep people healthy, keep the mass population healthy. Those are just the points that I wanted to bring forth, and hopefully I did it in the tactful manner that you requested.
You did. Thank you very much for being respectful and being tactful in your speech. And there are a lot of things that I agree with you on, especially when you were adding some explanation to the whole Roe thing, how she basically turned the page later in her life, which most people tend to forget, which is a huge thing. And, obviously there are some things I disagree with as well. I don't think that it should ever be allowed on a technical point for, the A word to take place. But there is a cynical side of me where I'm like, well, if you want to end your bloodline and be kind of idiotic about it and not, have beautiful children and see the literal face, like see the face of God in your child, then go ahead, end your bloodline. Like you're ending your bloodline. It's so dumb.
I can agree. Personally, I think it's atrocious. Personally, I would not ever expect something like that done to my body. However, because my personal opinions and feelings should not matter in the legalities of what's going on. What should matter is, look, if you don't want that to happen, it's I just find it very strange that the same people that are griping that it's not being performed properly or whatever with abortions and anti-abortions and all of that stuff. It's the whole, how do I word this? It's a choice issue. Look, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your body. You want to go mess up your body, you go do it. You want to go turn it into, get all the tattoos and piercings and so on and so forth and mutilate yourself, you go for it. That is your body. Do it by your choice. But don't come at me. Don't come at me when I do something of my own choosing just because you don't agree with it.
Yeah, so host, I don't know if you know me, but I argue in pro-life, and I just had some questions for Authentic, and that could go to both of you as well, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, Authentic, do you view bodily autonomy under an inalienable right or a positive right?
That's very touchy ground. That's a catch-22, because if you say it one way, then it's for bodily autonomy for a fetus versus bodily autonomy for the host of that fetus. And that's the first thing that needs to happen under laws. We need to get a hold of the definitions and the legal usages of the terms that we're going to put into law.
No, it wouldn't go one way or the other. I'm asking, is the right to bodily autonomy a positive or a negative?
Yeah,
I would consider this
explain the definitions. Explain the definitions.
Yeah. Explain your definitions behind it, and then I can tell you whether I agree one way or the other.
A negative right is something that you are, that is inalienable. So I would consider those to be the right to life, freedom of speech, the right to defend yourself. All these things would be negative rights. However, a positive right is a right that is a privilege by the government, which would include healthcare, which would include, you can argue, food, and you can argue many other resources that can be provided by a definition. And then I would consider bodily autonomy the right to govern what you do or not do with your own body. So would you assign that to a positive or a negative right?
So a negative right, you're basically saying, is an inalienable right? Am I getting this right? And a positive right is given to you by the state?
Yes, it would be a privilege.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So, and you're asking in regards to the A word.
That fetus have an inalienable right?
Well, he's asking us a question as far as what we view that as, and I would say it is a negative right.
To bodily autonomy?
No. To the right of the child inside the womb.
Yeah.
So there would be no. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, the whole bodily autonomy argument, because there's two bodies literally growing inside. I mean, there's one body inside and one body outside. So that literally makes no logical sense. Then you just go down that rabbit hole of basically you can commit, that act that's very egregious outside of the womb as well, which we have seen with late term A word. So I would say the right for the child inside is a negative right.
Yeah, I would say, that's a negative right. What I was trying to dictate, and I'll kind of move along to the point I was trying to make in particular, is if you consider abortion to be a form of healthcare, that's a positive right. That is a privilege by the government. So what that would ultimately mean is you want to have a right to choose what you do or not do with your body, because it is a privilege by the government for healthcare, right? So the healthcare can either grant you or not grant you that right, which you want to have a choice with to begin with, is the overall point I'm trying to make.
That's a really good point.
Essentially, healthcare is a service. Can we all agree on that?
Which is a privilege, yes.
Correct.
Okay, so it's a service. Just like you have, I would consider it to be elective. I would think that you've got a lot of entities that are out there that donate for Planned Parenthood, for anti-abortion.
Mm-hmm. But I think you agree with me, though, that you're not entitled to someone else's labor. That's why it's a privilege. That's why healthcare is a privilege, because you're not entitled to someone else's labor, because that would be involuntary servitude, which would go directly against their bodily autonomy.
Yeah, dude, you're making really good points. I've never heard this side of the argument before. I like how, and I've never heard of those terms either, positive and negative rights. So I really do appreciate you coming on and educating me on that specifically. And I'm sure Authentic appreciates that as well. And those are really good points. Like I've asked people before in the chat when they're talking about healthcare being a right, I asked them what healthcare is, and nobody can give me even a clear definition as to what healthcare is. And from what you're stating, it's very obvious, and the answer that I've been looking for from others for a long time, but the way that you've articulated it is very, very good.
True. And I would go a step further within my argument, because I argue pro-life, and I'm actually getting to be one of the top tier pro-lifers, is that when it comes to a right to end another person's life, that is something that is not a right. You cannot articulate your right to end another, especially if you cause this life to be dependent on you.
Right.
Even if you, and what pro-choicers will typically say, well, you don't consent to being pregnant. Okay, so let's provide an analogy. If me and you are on the road and it's 2 a.m., we consent to getting in our car, which is an act of sex. However, if you hit me, we both didn't consent to that action because it was an accident, most likely. However, if I'm dying on the side of the road, even though you didn't consent to hitting me, you still have an obligation to provide me resources and help, even if you don't want to. Because if you walk away from a person dying that you directly caused to be in a state of life or death, and you walk away from that situation, you can absolutely be held accountable even though you didn't consent.
Yeah.
We need to kiss high ground.
Yeah, I mean, these things seem very obvious, but I think the issue here is, which is why we do the show here at MOT. We have multiple shows here, and why you're probably successful in what you do is a lot of people who see the common sense have a hard time articulating how that actually looks. And so, you're doing a very, I would can't compliment you enough, man. You are very, very articulate in your approach here, and very consistent logically, which is hard to find these days.
That is definitely the huge issue amongst it, is you get a lot of people dealing with facts over feelings over facts instead of it being the other way around.
And that's what I see too. Right, and when it comes to debates, typically with the pro-life side, they say that we lack empathy for women that go through harsh times. No, we don't lack empathy, but we're trying to have a good course debate. And you have to take feelings, no matter how evil it is or how traumatizing it is. You have to put those aside and actually look at what we're seeing today within our society. And we're seeing a society that is normalizing and allowing abortion to occur, right? Just because of personal convenience, which is fundamentally not the purpose that it was designed to do.
Right. Right. You know, and I find a lot of times that when you try to have it's almost impossible to have a debate with anybody these days, simply because I can't say anybody, but the reason I'm saying, you know, most people is because most people are persuaded by rhetoric. They are not they're not dialectic. They don't, the dialectic approach doesn't appeal to many people. And so that's what I try to incorporate in some of what I do here, is try to be more rhetorical. But I have a hard time because I do have a dialectic mindset. That's just the way I work. You know, I was, I mentioned before, I was a history major. I was planning on going to law school, all this stuff. I ended up dropping out because I did not want debt, and I was out of debt before I finished my degree and everything. And I was like, well, I would actually have more money just starting my own business or something in the long run, as opposed to having debt. So anyway, that's just a point that I wanted to make, is most people are rhetorical as opposed to dialectic. And this is what we see in politics.
Yeah, I'm in the same route as you. I'm trying to become a lawyer. I look at situations not from like I'm taking one side or the other. I look at facts and what I'm providing, which typically another thing that makes no sense when it comes to the pro-choice side. And you can correct this if I'm wrong, but this is actually backed by many peer-reviewed research. If you look at Harvard and many institutions, there's peer-reviewed that abortion always increases trauma, because they did a peer-reviewed study of 80% of women that go through an abortion. 80% of women typically regret, have guilt, or feel ashamed because they had an abortion. And there's no peer-reviewed study to date to show that having an abortion would reduce any trauma that may occur when someone's already pregnant. It only increases.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. And I don't even think that you need studies to prove this. I mean, you just look at human psychology and it's easily deducible. Seriously, and I have to add this because I ultimately I do make a kind of nasty argument for pro-choice, and like, if you want to end your bloodline, like that just means you're weak and you deserve to, it's kind of a eugenics position on my part. So I get that, but ultimately I am pro-life. I ultimately I am. I just make that argument just because the fun of it, because I can see some points to it. But anyway, I am ultimately pro-life. The point I'm getting at here is what needs to really be done, though, as opposed to focusing on the women and shaming the women for doing this, men have to take responsibility, because ultimately women, whether we want to accept this or not, this is the reality of the world. If you just become more naturalistic in your approach and objective in your approach, you will see that this is true in the dynamic between men and women, and that is women look to men for leadership. And so when your men are being promiscuous, they are being effeminate, they are being inconsistent, they are liars, why would the woman feel secure having their child? And so I think that this all starts with the man, not the woman. It is the man who allows for this to take place. So in order to truly have a effective overturning of Roe v. Wade, we need to see a rise in masculinity.
And I argue the same. I was particularly talking about abortion. However, I'm not, like I said, I look at facts. What we do see in our society today is typically men lead the situation statistically. Typically men do the essaying or to women. And there's still fundamental changes that need to happen between men as well. Not denying that at all. And I think what this decision will do ultimately is allow for the sanctity of life to help better be protected. However, we still have many societal changes that need to occur. And if I have a master's degree in business, I don't have it yet. I'm about to obtain it in December. Typically it's social institutions. We need better family ties, better school values, and we need a lot better institutions that, help shape our morale as a country, because we're slowly losing our morality because social institutions are not doing their job or their best ability to provide for the proper education. We have lack of family ties and value, and all of our institutions are slowly collapsing.
I would
see that
Right. And I would add this, that the reason why this is something that I feel most people are totally unaware of when it comes to institutions. Institutions and governments are simply the external manifestation of the collective's inner world. That's a fact, because the corporations, the institutions, the governments, they're all ideas, imaginations, emotions, feelings that we think should be out in the world. And so then we build them. So all of these things start in our inner world. We don't even have to get mystical about it or spiritual. This is just you can even go materialistic, as I said, with ideas, thoughts, emotions, etc. These bring the systems out. And so then the systems serve those who created it, whether we like to admit it or not. And so it's not the institution's fault, it's the people's fault for the societal degrade. Additionally, it shouldn't be the institution's job ever to instill morality in a people. The people should be the ones instilling morality into the institutions, because morality in the nation begins at the home with the family.
Yeah, true. Yeah, when I meant social, I meant family, which ultimately leads to school. Like, all these things involve like heavy ties. Like, institution could just be a family. That could just be a mother and their daughter, son. Like, all these things are very important, right? And it's directly important for kids to have a good school balance with education, and also learning proper education from parents. So both institutions within that could cause like a lot of issues and confusion. So it's important that we have, like, from family to school to whatever else institution they want to go to for personal expression, in a sense, is at least grounded through rational thought rather than, feelings, emotion, and all these other things. But yeah, thanks for having me. My phone's at 3%. I'm going to continue watching, but yeah, great conversation and authentic. Thank you for talking with me as well.
Oh, yeah, no, thank you. I'm sorry that you're having to get off. One of the things I wanted to tap on top of that is with society, entertainment. There's not a set standard or a moral code given. It's just whatever can be done to make a buck. And unfortunately, responsibility as a whole has kind of just gone out the window. Parental units don't take the responsibility that I think that they need to take in order to maintain a child's well-being, maintain that familial unit, being able to show that, hey, as a society, it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to have feelings and be angry. Right now, everybody's so quick to get behind a platform such as TikTok or Facebook or other social media and just regurgitate what they heard with highlight points on yesterday's news. And it seems that people are not using their own thought processes to go, let me take a look into this a little bit further before I just parrot the talking points.
Right. Yeah. And, I would add that for entertainment, once again, I am a firm believer that entertainment only is successful. It only makes money if the people buy it to begin with. So you vote with your dollars. So if you think that the entertainment is doing these egregious acts because they think they're going to get money, the only reason they're doing these things, which you're referring to, is because they know they'll get money because the society is so depraved, is so degraded. So it isn't the entertainment doing that. We focus so much on what these institutions are doing. We focus so much on what the government's doing. And we never want to focus on what we are actually doing to make that happen. And this is something that I find really profound, and I've mentioned it numerous times in the stream. It's in the Bible. I'm gonna get biblical here, where every apocalyptic event that has taken place in the city, there has been a prophet or something like that, where they go and say, hey, you need to repent. You need to repent. But they're not telling, thank you, emotional damage. And then Jay, the crane dude, I'll answer your question in a second. You need to chill out, my man. I've seen it like 5 times. So they always focus on the individual, saying, you have repented. You need to repent. They don't go to the government and saying, hey, government, you really need to change what you're doing because you're very corrupt. Hey, theater people, you really need to change what you're doing because you're corrupt. No, they always go after the individual, because the individual is where it starts logically.
Right.
and then it builds out to their families and stuff. So this is something that is from the home outward, because without a family, you have no nation. And so right now, what we see happening with the Roe v. Wade, when it was in existence, was was an attack on the family, and then also it's an attack on the nation. Nobody really wants to talk about this, but the fact that America has a declining birth rate, and then what we do in order to supplement that declining birth rate because Americans aren't having kids is bring in immigrants. Fact. And then what do? They have a bunch of children because they're based. The Muslims are based. They get it. They're like, we need to have children, we need to praise Allah, and we need to be moral. Based. And Americans, there's so many fake Christians out there that won't even do what the Bible says, not even just following the Bible, but just simply following truth, because truth can be found outside of the Bible. The Catholics, I'm not Catholic, but the Catholics have a beautiful quote saying, God wrote 2 books. One is nature and the other is the Bible. I think it's a beautiful quote because everybody can, at least, I don't know about everybody, but anybody who has any inklings towards spirituality can definitely agree with the first part, that God did write nature. Now, I do want to get to this question by Jay the Crane Dude. Should the A word, I don't know what I can say here, guys. I say very innocuous things and I get banned, all right? So I'm going to say the A word. Should the A word be Fed ban or state ban? Is that a hard question to answer? What am I missing? It's not a hard question to answer. I don't think that it should really be allowed anywhere at all. There should be rare exceptions if the mother's life is in jeopardy, but that was already the case before Roe v. Wade, which most people don't want to talk about. Fact, that was already the case. If the mother's life was in jeopardy, you had that choice. But most people don't want to talk about that. The J word. Oh, yeah, that's hilarious. This is very true. Let's see some other comments here. Well, Authentic, I thank you very much for coming on. We got some other people that want to hop on. Yeah, you too. So let me see some other comments here, and then we'll move on. Roe v. Wade, yep, was an absolute attack on the nation. Fact. Here he comes with his religious stuff. Yep. If they can't tear the family unit apart, they can tear down the fabric of society. Well, they have to tear the family apart before they can tear the society apart. So does the Fed ban? Yes, you didn't answer. I said yes on both fronts. All right. So now we got 2 more people who want to hop on in, and we're going to let them in. Hopefully have some good discussions still. So, all right. What's going on, guys?
Hey, I just wanted to ask this question. So, we all saw the Roe v. Wade overturning coming. At the end of the day, everyone more or less is pro-life. No one wants anyone to have an abortion. But the idea of the government coming in telling you you're forced to have, you're forced to keep it, or you're taking away that freedom to choose is just very strange. But hey, these things happen morally, blah, blah, blah. The big red flag for me was the aftermath where they're like, hey, yeah, and we're going to start looking at the 14th Amendment again. We're going to start looking at stuff like, same-sex marriage and things that happened in the bedroom. And so like that was added on paper in the opinion piece from the Supreme Court judge, from the judge. So why is no one talking about that part?
Yeah, all right, let's talk about it. So first off, I think that you have some logical fallacies. It is not somebody's choice to end somebody, to unalive somebody. Like, unless it's self-defense, there's no reason to unalive somebody. There really isn't, unless there's self-defense involved. So to equate that with the A word is illogical. It really is, because there are 2 different bodies. There's 2 bodies in the equation. So if you believe in body autonomy, well, then what about the body inside of the woman's autonomy? They then lose their autonomy.
They have months was it 3 or 4 months before that actually takes place? So
that isn't true at all. That isn't true. Hang on. I'm addressing these points here. So we'll get to Mike Valverde. I'm not sure that's Valverde. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah. So that's one thing. Right. And so also, if we're going to get into the nitty gritty of things, 6 weeks in, they have a heartbeat. Then you have to start getting into weird things like when life begins. And I think it's pretty obvious that life begins at conception, because the only way to have life is for life to be there technically. So, I mean, it just makes logical sense. Like life just doesn't start a few weeks after. Life starts immediately upon conception because that's the most logical answer. Anyway, addressing your second point about the 14th Amendment, good, they're looking over that because it's not marriage. Marriage is the union between a man and a woman. Marriage is the ability to have a family, and you can't have a family the other way around. We're not going to get too deep into that one, though. We're not. We can't because the algorithm. No, it's because hang on. I'm trying to explain this to you guys. I let you guys on here, so I don't know who's speaking. It doesn't notify me who's speaking, so that's why I'm addressing both of you. So the reason I'm saying that we can't go too deep into it is not because I'm afraid to. I would love, if you guys want to have personal debates after this, we can do it on YouTube. We can do a live stream on YouTube, but TikTok is very sensitive on these subjects. So it just doesn't make any logical sense the other way either. Now, Mike Valverde, go ahead with what you were going to say, my man.
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you for having me on. Now, when you speak when you're speaking and you have thank God for Trump, and are you a religious man?
I am a religious man, and let me clarify something here. I did not vote for Trump in 2020. I'm not a big fan of Trump at all. There's a lot of things that I dislike about him politically. Mainly that thank God for Trump was to grab attention. I am thanking God for Trump as far as getting the Supreme Court justices in for the major wins that we've recently saw. But yes, I am religious. No, I'm not a big Trump fan at all. I am not a MAGA supporter. I am not a Trumper. This was merely to grab attention, but I did vote for Trump in 2016.
Okay. I can deal with 2016. It's the ones that voted for him in 2020 that I'm like, I have no word for you, because if you didn't see that mess for 4 years, I have no idea what to tell you. Okay, I can't really debate you just because you have your beliefs in a certain set of time, and I have my beliefs in a certain set of time. So without having what you're saying, and I want to respect your live and everything else, is because of what you're saying with TikTok and stuff like that.
We can have a debate, but it just has to be very tactful in our approach. That's all. It has to be. We can't just talk as if we're two guys at the bar discussing these things. TikTok's very sensitive, so we have to be a little bit just careful using code words like we're in the Underground Railroad or something. Like we're Anne Frank hiding in the attic, and we're trying to make sure that the SS officers don't catch us.
Gotcha. Address me real quick. I'm sure you have a lot of people in here, right? Trying to get on.
No, not as of right now.
Okay, good. So before I address your point, someone in the comments says, why do liberals ignore Joe Biden's past? I am not one that ignored that at all. So thank you for trying. All right. So to me, it comes down to, I don't believe that the founding fathers had abortion in mind when writing the Constitution. I don't think they sat there and went, well, what about this? So to say that it was already in the Constitution is a problem. Then they go in and they say, okay, Roe versus Wade, and then they make it part of the Constitution. So you're stripping away something that was never there in the first place, and that does not make any sense to me whatsoever. I'm not saying that Roe versus Wade is the correct way. I'm saying that decision was made just like with the Second Amendment, and them fortifying even more stuff on the Second Amendment. You can't start somewhere that isn't there, and that's what they're doing. Their only excuse is it's somewhere in the 14th Amendment, but it's nowhere in the 14th Amendment. So that's what I have a problem with. B, we could probably debate on when human life begins. I'm not someone is religious. My belief is at 3 months, then no more. Right? Once you hit that 3 mark, then the child is born, and you should not have an abortion. I also believe that it should be a choice, because that's what makes us Americans, is choice. So stripping away a choice is counterproductive to American way.
those are the kind of the three things I see on it. I'd be happy to hear what you have to say and rebuttal and things like that.
Yeah, so we can even take religion out of the equation. So a lot of people, because I am openly a Christian. I'm not your typical Christian, though. I think that the typical Christians I would more so classify as churchian. They just go with straight dogma. They have no logic. It's totally idiotic. So I'm not your typical Christian, but I am an ardent. I am a Christian through and through. But I think a lot of people get that confused when they say that it's going to be tied into my religious beliefs. Obviously, there is a religious component to it, but we can do it without religion. So when it comes to life, how do you logically conclude 3 months beforehand, 2 months is not a life? So let me ask you this logically, if we're going to go on first principles. Does something that's unalive become alive? When have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just asking. So, and it's a really straightforward question. So, like, I will point at, like, right here. This is one of my daughter's toys. It's unalive. When have you ever seen something unalive come to life?
Right. Yeah. Are we talking about a pregnancy? Or are we talking about like?
No, it's very simple. Like, I'm just talking about in general. When have you ever seen anything that's not alive become alive?
Well, I guess eggs with chickens, right? They're not alive. They're just an embryo until they're fertilized and stuff like that. And then once that takes place, and then the chickens come out of the shell. I've seen that many times.
So the egg is something different because chickens can have eggs without it being fertilized, as you said. But that's different from it. Like, if a chicken already lays the egg, it's not like they can go back and fertilize that egg. So when have you ever seen anything that isn't alive at all become alive?
Well, I would say I don't know if that's right as far as chickens go, but yeah, well, probably nothing then as far as that, except for outside of human race, where we have a baby, until there's a heartbeat and a brain active, then the baby's not alive.
So a heartbeat and an active brain makes something alive.
Yes.
What if it doesn't have an active brain?
Then it's probably not alive.
Do we consider people who are effectively like brain dead not alive?
Yeah, I think it depends on what your belief is. That's why a lot of people, pull the plug, because there's no activity in the brain cell, and they know that it's just a human body sitting there, with an active heartbeat, but they will never do anything but sit there. So they pull the plug.
Yeah, but is it alive though? Is that human alive? It has an active heartbeat.
So. I think if the person is brain dead, there's no brain activity, and they're only being charged by a machine, the person is not alive.
Okay. Fair enough. I can see where you're coming from. But I would say obviously their body is still alive if their heart is beating and their blood is flowing.
Yeah, but you can also have that with people who's been beheaded too, right? There's times sometimes that the electrical body is stimulated because there's sort of been a delay in the circuiting with the head being chopped off, that the body is still moving, but we know that once that head is chopped off, then the person is eventually going to die, right?
Yes, I mean that is a fair point, but I don't think that it's the same as considering somebody brain dead, because you can live for a long time in that condition with your body. But as soon as you had what you just said had done to you, I mean, that's obvious. There is no there's no life after that.
But it's just a quicker ends to the means of the same thing with the body being brain dead. You know what I mean? It's the same situation. One is just a person's alive because the machines are electrical and keeping the body charged, right? So that's sort of the separation, is that the mechanical is still keeping that body alive, but once you remove that mechanical and the electrical system, then that body becomes dead.
Yeah, fair. I can definitely see your point in that regard. I really can. I don't have a rebuttal for that right now. So I would say that, once we start getting into those conversations, it becomes more philosophical and spiritual. So it is harder to really delve into those ones. But yeah, I mean, you raise a really good point. And that's a point that I haven't heard before, a rebuttal that I haven't heard before. So thank you for that, because now it gives me something to really consider. But I would say that it is kind of odd that you would consider humans an exception to the rule of something not being alive and then alive. How does something grow if it's not alive? Because there has to be a progression of growth to that 3-month period. So when have you ever seen something not alive grow?
Well, I mean, outside of what I pointed to, I don't know anything really. I think everything that is, as you mentioned, unalive is pretty much always unalive.
Right. So then it's very logical to say that life would have to be at the start as opposed to at a 3-month period, because there's other people who can pull out scientific evidence and state, well, hey, it's 6 months. Actually, based on our science, it's not until the baby's born that the baby's alive.
Right.
So, I mean, then you just go through inconsistencies. So you would have to then, the only consistency that you have is with people who say that it begins at conception. That's the only place where you find consistency, which then should tell you that the truth, because when we know something's true, the truth doesn't change. Like 2 + 2 will never equal 7. The sun will never not come up in the morning or appear in the morning. It never will not do that. There will never not be 4 seasons. So those are things that are objective truths that are always consistent. So if something is inconsistent, that's indicative of a lie. And so therefore the argument of progression into life would have to be a lie because it's inconsistent.
And okay, and I follow you there. I'm definitely I'm trying to be as open-minded as you are, and you make very good points. The question I would have when you're with what you're saying is, have you ever been to the beach?
Yes.
Okay, so something like kelp, right? We know is alive, right?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Like kelp or moss.
Okay.
Or,
yes.
Right. I don't think as people we ever think twice of, like, if we wanted to, we rip the moss off the rock and not think twice about it. But it is a life. It is alive.
Right.
So my question would be, why is something? I mean, besides, why do we look at something as really not alive? Because we don't think moss is alive. We just whatever. But we do with something that's like an amoeba in someone's stomach that is, the same thing as moss.
Yeah. So, it's a decent question, but I would say that everybody knows that it's alive. Just because they don't consider it alive doesn't mean it isn't alive. The same way that just because you may not consider at conception alive doesn't mean it isn't alive. And in regards to destroying other lives, well, that is a part of life. We do have life and then not life. That's the cycle of life. And so as humans, we're at the top of the hierarchy. And so we have the privilege of being dominant over other species. We just do. We do. And so we can utilize those species to our benefit. Now it becomes wrong when humans know what we know to then end its own life, its own kind. That then becomes wrong, especially when it is inside the womb. So I would say they're two different things. They're not equivalent. Like, not all, I don't know how I can say this because it might get me kicked off. Not all things.
You don't have to go there.
Yeah. Not all things are equals. Not all things are equal.
Right, and I know how that kind of made it sound like I was trying to compare someone that was, an infant to kelp, but that what I'm saying is how we visually look at things. Like we can take something and not care a dang thing about, and it would be the same thing. The only difference is it's housing inside a human, but if you took it out and you took out the kelp, it's the same microorganisms. It's the same thing. One's is going to be human, one's is going to be kelp. But we don't look at kelp as anything, but we look at this. So
let me ask you this.
Really, that is, but it's a way of thinking too.
Let me ask you this: do you have any kids?
No, I do not.
All right. So when you have kids, you'll then realize this truth. It's very hard to be a parent and support this because I have 2 children and 1 on the way. My wife has been pregnant now for the past, I don't know, she's due in September, so I'm not going to do the math on the stream. My mind's kind of fried. I've been working all day, and some of it's been outside anyway.
It's coming,
so,
right? We got about, 3 months, 4 months, but
yeah. So as soon as that was discovered, it was no longer like, well, there isn't a life growing inside of you. It never was that. You're never like, especially when it's your child, you're never going to be like, well, my child isn't really there until it's 3 months old. But until then, it's not really alive. Because let's say you are unable, like let's say your wife has the misfortune of a miscarriage at 1 month, which is very common. Why is it called a miscarriage if there's no life?
Right. Exactly. But on the same sense, and I agree with you, and I believe with what you're saying. I mean, I can't feel that same way because, of course, I've never been there. But what you're saying makes sense to me. But here's a rebuttal to that is that if you do miscarriage or whatever, it's not murder either. So if it's a life, then why isn't it considered murder?
Because that's totally different. Because that just means that you had a failed pregnancy, and it was nobody unalived it. Nobody unalived it. Nobody went in there and effectively eliminated any life. Nobody did that. It was just an unfortunate event where the body just did not mesh well with what was inside of it. And so that does happen, and it is unfortunate, but it is different than murder. It is very different.
Let me give you an example because this wasn't personal to me, but I know the person that this happened to. And she was having troubles maintaining her pregnancy, and she was, the doctor was like, okay, look, this is a touch and go situation. It's a fragile issue. What we need you to do is not walk, just take it easy, relax, don't overstress yourself, that kind of stuff. And she didn't listen. We see her walking around and doing all kinds of activity, and we're just like, what are you doing? The doctor gave you specific, directions not to be doing this. And she just didn't care. Well, what ended up happening, of course, was she lost the baby. So in that situation, what would you consider?
Well, it wasn't she did not end the baby. She did not you have to do something to, I got to be careful on how we're going to word these things. To do the M word, you have to be intention. There has to be intention behind the M word. And also,
Right,
I would be very dubious of what a lot of Western doctors say, simply because they have one of the leading causes of unaliving people in the country. So I would be very dubious of what they have to say. And it could have been other things as well. The doctor could have been right in that situation, that particular situation. Maybe he was right, but it definitely would not be that. I mean, that's like saying, I'm trying to find a good analogy for that. Once again, I usually am really good at analogies. My brain's kind of fried right now, so I can't come up with a good analogy, but that's definitely not the M word. I mean, the M word has to be intention. It has to be I need to I'm going to do this thing to this person intentionally and take away their ability to exist. And that definitely, I'm assuming, was not the case in her situation. I mean, maybe she needed to do those things in order to, I don't know her situation, but it's definitely different. It's definitely different.
Okay.
I mean, I know there's a lot of unknowns to, you know, that situation, and as far as where you're concerned, because you weren't there and all that kind of stuff. So I hear you. I do hear you, and you're right about the M word. Is a lot of the first thing you have to have is intention. And most crimes, especially violent crimes, are, you know, tied into that one single word is intention. So I totally agree with you. Okay, you know, I'm super happy I can talk with someone that's so open-minded. And
likewise,
thanks very much for letting me have my say, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on and for being open-minded as well. You have a great night, my man.
Thank you, sir. You too.
All right. So, yeah, guys, there's a lot of good things happening in the country. There really is. There's a lot of good things to be excited about. And those of us who see the reality, see the truth, we need to relish in that. But we also need to remember it is on us in order to keep making those changes, in order to bring it on a local level, because we're so focused on the federal level, the national level. But right now we need to focus on what's happening culturally and what's happening in your area, because in different areas, there's going to be different things to affect you based on your culture, based on who you surround yourself with. So that's very important. We had a comment here: Republicans keep wanting to enforce their values on everyone else. That's not true. Well, I'm not even going to call myself a Republican. Republicans want minority rule. Okay. I don't know what that is. So anyway, that is that's something. When was the last time a Republican president won the popular vote? I don't know, but it literally doesn't matter, because that's not the way our electoral system is set up at all. It just isn't. So, you know, the most important thing I think that people can do is focus in your local areas, as I mentioned numerous times. Focus on what you can do to be effective there. And that is huge. You don't think that might be a defect with your electoral system? No, it actually prevents popular rule, because popular rule can, there's checks and balances to it. So I'm not a fan of the system as a whole, like the republic. I mean, like, it's a good system, but I think that probably monarchies would be better, because you would be able to see the corruption right away, and then the king and his family would have to endure whatever punishment or whatever laws that he has put in place throughout time. And then we got a comment here, says, we need poll watchers and volunteers. We do. I mean, you know, like the Democrats are, you know, funding poll volunteers, poll watchers, people to work the election system. They are bankrolling it essentially, because they're trying to, and they're implementing this in local elections, which is why it's so important to remember that this fight is also on the local front, not just the national front. So don't get too lazy. Don't get too, if you want to be political, I'm not telling anybody what to do, but if you want to be political, the best way to attack it is from the local side of things. So we got some comments here. Let's keep reading these comments. So you have a 6-3 conservative court while the majority of America hold opposite views. I don't think that's true. The Republicans are using underhanded political tactics to gain outsized influence. This doesn't make any sense, because all of the media is left-wing. Literally all of the media. Pro-choice lost. Way to go to Trump's appointed Supreme Courts. Yeah, that's right. Woohoo! The right wing is shrinking, and rather than moving to obtain votes, they're breaking the system. Triggered libs. Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's what we're witnessing here, is just a bunch of triggered individuals, and that's okay. You know, it is what it is. But yeah, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse here. We are not a theocracy, little guy. I never said theocracy. I said monarchy. There's a huge difference. So you don't have a job. I don't know if you're directing that at me, but don't know 42093. I guarantee I probably work more than you do, my man. Define theocracy. Yeah, where a religion is in charge of the government, where the religion is the rule. Let's look up the definition. Let's look up the definition just for the fun of it. So a system in government in which priests rule in the name of God, which is different than a monarchy. A monarchy is a king, not a priest. Two separate things. Two separate things. This is literally the definition. A system of government in which priests rule in the name of God or a God. It is not a monarchy. It is not a monarchy. I know what you're saying, but I'm telling you they're mutually exclusive because you can have a monarchy without having a theocracy. You understand that, right? And you can have a theocracy in a monarchy, but you can also have a theocracy under a democracy. Like, it doesn't make sense what you're saying. Media isn't entirely I know the media isn't entirely left wing, but their majority are. And AM talk is entirely concerned. AM talk, who in the heck listens to AM talk? Come on. Come on. This guy's arguments is ridiculous. I mean, everybody knows this. These are not things that are like hidden in public. This is like very well known. And yet you deny. Why do you deny? But all right, guys, if nobody else wants to come on and have a conversation about this, I'm about to hop off. I will probably be on here tomorrow in the evening as well to go over some other topics. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm a little tired. I worked a lot in the hot sun. And yeah, it's just been a long day for me. So I'm gonna hop off of here, but make sure you follow MOT Media on TikTok and MOT Media everywhere, especially on TikTok, because that's a backup channel for us. MOT Sports as well, where the guys cover sports. I have nothing to do with that one. And then obviously this channel. But yeah, guys, so the Honest Hour is here Monday through Friday and 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll probably start doing Saturdays too, just because. And then Sundays, we have the MOT Today, and then we have MOT Sports on Saturdays as well. So, yeah, guys, much love. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and we will see you tomorrow. Peace.